thing recording?
Dude, that's what I was telling you
Okay,
about.
great. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 8th regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council. Scott, will you take a roll for us?
Okay, Greg?
Here.
Gus?
Here.
Claire?
Here.
I'm here. Dan?
Here.
And I don't see Kimberly.
We will not.
Kimberly, no. And Ann, no. Okay.
Great. All right, then let's move on to reports from government officials. I see we have Harvey. Harvey, do you have anything for us?
Yes, I do. A few items. The Cabrillo School District now has a new superintendent, which might something that we should certainly be aware of. At the city council meeting last night, we passed on second reading rent control. So that's now starting June 1st anyway. The law of the land in Half Moon Bay about keeping rents no more than 3% or 80% of the CPI, and all renters, even those who are not subject to rent control, I mean all landlords, must register their rental units so that we can really know who's doing what and how many renters and what the rents are and the number of bedrooms, that sort of stuff. So that's also going to take place starting June 1st. Also at the city council meeting last night, we awarded a contract for municipal energy improvements. That's all the city buildings are going to have solar. They're going to be equipped to have storage in the future, more EV charging stations. We're going to require fully electric. So we awarded that contract. We're going to get grants from the U.S. government, from PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, and the state to help with some of the initial startup costs for the changes. You probably are aware there's a big controversy about affordable housing project that's being built at, or will be built, at 555 Kelly. The Planning Commission has met twice with meetings that have lasted to midnight or beyond. There's going to be one more plan today. We're looking forward to what they. It's going to be an interesting project one way or another. There's a lot of activity both for and against the project. Lots and lots of comments, even at the city council meeting, which was not discussing 555 Kelly last night. There were a whole bunch of comments, both again, for and against. And the last item on my list is the city is working on summer traffic. We're talking about having more deputies to shepherd traffic, especially at intersection of Highway 1 and 92. More efforts to patrol the beaches that the city owns. We're going to try to get Caltrans to actually put signs up on 92 to tell the status of what's going on with our beaches. So we're fully aware of some of the issues that have happened in the past, and we're going to try to mitigate as much as possible traffic issues this summer. I'll be glad to answer any questions if anybody has.
I actually have one. You mentioned it sounds like not everybody's necessarily rent control doesn't apply to necessarily every landlord. Out of curiosity, what's the algorithm?
There's a state law called Contra Hawkins, subject to rent control. The building must have, prior to 1995, single family homes, duplexes where the owner is residing in one of the units is not subject to rent control. So it's basically multifamily homes built before 1995. Those are the ones that will be subject. Plus, there's the possibility that there will be a repeal of the Contra Hoskins law on the November ballot, but that hasn't been decided yet.
Interesting. Great.
Two questions to follow up on that one.
5 stories tall. Has there been any redesign with any of the pushback from the community?
Not yet. The design before the planning commission is 5 stories, 40 affordable units on a full 0.3 acres.
Yeah, that's not really small town feel. On the all electric, I have a friend who just purchased a house, and I guess the county transfer a house, you have to take out all the gas and make it all electric. And yes, in this last winter, he was stuck with you can't have a fireplace. He was you get the short end of the stick. So I've heard reports of movement in this direction, and I question it. I'm sure there's plenty of other community members that are also raising issues. So I'll stop there and voice my concern at the Half Moon Bay City Council at the right time, I guess.
Oh, you're always welcome.
Any other?
I can briefly comment about, we had passed an ordinance that would have required new construction to be 100% electric. In the meantime, the city of Berkeley, who had a similar ordinance, had it challenged in court. So as of now, what the city has decided is that it will not enforce that requirement for new construction, but we still highly encourage it. We're looking forward to developments along the legal front, because we think it's important, but right now we can't require it because of the court decision.
Okay. Yes.
I would just like to ask a question about the rent control. Is that in cities?
Yeah, you got to go to the mic.
I'd like to ask a question about the rent control. Is that in cities or unincorporated areas also?
I think it's just Half Moon Bay, right?
Just Half Moon Bay.
Oh, it is. Okay. Thanks.
East Palo Alto also has a rent control ordinance.
Okay. Anything else for Harvey? Nope. Thanks so much, Harvey, as always.
Thank you.
I do see Barbara Dye. I don't know if she wants to speak. I see Crystalline.
Okay. Anything from either Barbara or Crystalline? Nope.
Oh, yeah, I can give an update.
Okay, great.
Crystalline from the Coastside Chamber. Thank you so much. I had the pleasure of going to the Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday and accept a proclamation on behalf of the Coastside business community. This month has been recognized as Small Business Awareness Month, so please get out there and spend some dollars in some Coastside small businesses. And then on May 15th at the Opportunity Center of the Coastside on Main Street, we are having a hybrid lunchtime-ish workshop for businesses that want to get some ideas on how to stay up and running during emergencies and disasters and things like when your power goes out and all of those. So some best practices that they can implement in their business to help keep things running. And that's being put on by Thrive Alliance and Pescadero Sustainable at the OCC. And then on May 16th, Ray's office in the harbor will be hosting a workshop in the evening with the help of the California Office of Small Business. to give businesses some ideas on things that they can do to get business funding, I believe, and all of the different resources that are available to small businesses through the California networks. And that'll be again at Ray's office on the evening of May 16th. So next week is chocked full all over the coast side. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kristlyn. Okay, if no other reports from government officials, then I'd like to move on to public comment on items not on the agenda. So do we have public comment on items not on the agenda? If so, step up to the mic.
Should identify himself.
And if I may ask that Ann that just came in?
Kimberly.
Oh, I thought you said Ann, sorry. I thought maybe it was Ann Stillman. That's who did my-
You should identify your name
Oh.
and where you live.
Scott Libby. I live in El Granado and Sonora.
Awesome. Go for it.
No, the reason I bring up Ann's name is because the Director of Public Works denied Sabrina and her cousin Dirk to cut down the county tree in the median because it's her property. So I'd like to read what I sent to AB7 on your side, which they wouldn't help with because they don't deal with those kind of things. But, and I'm assisting Dirk, who's the owner of 102 Balboa across the street, and Sabrina, who's the renter. And she sleeps on the kitchen floor due to a poor condition 90-foot tree that's 75 feet away from her bedroom upstairs. She has been caused much stress since March 4th, which was the start of the county application process and its requirements for tree removal. El Granada unincorporated area, San Mateo County does not have the band. I'm saying they didn't have the bandwidth to remove the Monterey cypress trees, and they're telling me they don't because of its property owned by the owners of the parcel. Halfway into the street, and if there's a median, it goes halfway into the median. Okay, oh, and they already paid $3,000 in arborist reports and county fees for permits and traffic control plans. And that's not over because to take the tree down, we've got a couple different estimates from anywhere from 8 to 12K. So why should anyone have to pay for a county tree to be removed that is a threat to people and property? And then finally, I've been dealing with Mike O'Neill and Ray, and they sent me all the information about the policies of the county about that being property of the owners across the street. So I understand, and they can't change that anytime soon. You know, Ray says he might work on it, but you know, it's not going to happen now. Oh, and this is the email that I sent you, Greg, Gus, and the general MCC email. You will not see Dirk Meiskin's CC that he's a disabled veteran who lives in Washington and does not use a computer or a cell phone since he retired. Sabrina communicates with her cousin every day over landline about everything that's going on with this tree. When the permit process was started, let's see, they followed the lead of the neighbor across the street who went through this and apparently has been dealing with trees for years in the median. And we thought we knew everything. And then we started talking to neighbors and they're going, well, you should come to you guys, go to Ray, go to Daily Journal, to a fire marshal. All those people were contacted over this. And some people sounded interested, but nobody could do anything about it. And then there one time a year ago, Ray remembers this. He had a blanket grant or something to take some trees down in Balboa during a storm. But he said it was only during a storm. Now that the storm's over, he can't get that anymore, that free rein to take dangerous trees down. So she saw there was a meeting here today, so that's why we showed up to talk about this. And the county doesn't want to set a precedent.
No.
You know,
Was it in
about
the depths
taking
of the abyss?
that tree down because everybody else is going to say, hey, we had to pay for it, or got it during the grants. So that's it. Thank you. No. Oh, one statement here. It's from LCP, Local Coastal Program. Protect against loss of life and property from coastal hazards. That's what they think falls under. So. Thank you.
Tell us on the map,
No.
roughly where the tree is.
See that house? We can look out the window and see it.
Okay, so where right now? So it's on this median?
Right here, yeah, this is 25 is their parcel of the tree, and it's on that median, yes.
Okay, so it's a cypress.
Yes, on this. And there's been 8 or 9 trees taken down in this area over the last,
And several blew down also, right?
well, yeah, no, because they have this.
Yeah.
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 Are we allowed to ask questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment from Zoom? No. Okay, then closing public comment and moving on to the consent agenda, for which we only have the minutes from April 24th. Does anyone want to pull them? Have any comments about them? Nope. Fantastic. And
Here we go.
do a vote, or we have to wait, somebody has to move to it.
I move we accept the items on the consent agenda.
Second,
Great. Scott, take it away.
Greg,
Yes.
Gus.
Yes.
Claire.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Dan,
Yes.
Kimberly,
Yeah.
okay.
Great.
Passes 6-0.
Sweet. Look at us, we're ahead of schedule. God, I would cry. All right, then on we go to the regular agenda. So first topic is community discussion of healthcare on the coast. Just to kind of frame that discussion, I know Ray is working on getting data on healthcare usage on the coast so that whatever decision we ultimately make about it is data driven. I think that's important. But I also wanted to make sure that we got a sense from the community, because it's not just a data issue. It's, it touches all of our lives. My wife took a spill down the stairs in the middle of the night when she went to get a glass of water. Glass shattered and slashed her chin. She missed the jugular by like that much. While I was 1,000 miles away on a business trip and had to drive herself to that place to get 21 stitches in her chin. So like, I am fully on board with, we have to have some kind of close by medical care. So, but I wanted to make sure that we got a sense from the community on kind of where everybody is on that, so that we can communicate that community sense to Ray, even as he works to get the kind of data side of it. So Claire is going to lead us in that discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
Thank you, Gus. Let's see, that's not what I wanted to put up there. Let me stop share. I'm sorry, this is just going to take me a second.
No worries. Ahead of schedule, Claire. You take 10 minutes.
Well,
to do that.
we are now. Not sure what's gonna happen.
And it's not on the thing.
No. I'm recording votes only,
Greg, maybe you could help me
and
if you were here.
Tech support.
Greg, we need tech support. Claire needs your help.
You mean
Urgently.
computer or over here?
No, at her computer.
Yeah, I'm just, okay, I think I'm okay right now. Is this
Stand
showing up?
down.
It is showing up, okay, thank you. Okay, there, as you know, probably, Seton Coast Side has traditionally provided some level of emergency care in the community, as well as some rehabilitation services like PT, OT, some other things like that, as well as skilled nursing care. What?
What's PT and OT?
Physical therapy and occupational therapy. Because of that kind of question right there, I realized that it might be good to make a whole list of what we think about when we think about healthcare. The purpose of this item on this agenda today is not to discuss pros and cons or possibilities of anything. It's just to get a sense from the community as to what do you think we need? What would you actually use if it was present here? And we already did put out some feelings through Nextdoor. We got 6 emails and 7 comments on Nextdoor, which is a pretty good response in a couple of days. And I'm hoping to get more responses here as to what you think we need and would you actually use it? So let me just run through really quickly what a healthcare system consists of. This is what I could come up with off the top of my head. First of all, there's critical care, things where the minutes matter, like a stroke, trauma, maybe heart attack. We have nothing like that available here. Second is emergency care, which is probably not minutes, but hours are important. And there is none available. Urgent care, which is, you probably ought to get it done today. That we don't have any of that here. Primary care, there are 3 primary care practices for adults and 1 pediatric practice on the coast. Specialty care, dermatologists, nephrologists, whatever, we have none. Mental health, there are 2 part-time psychiatrists and multiple other providers. Basic diagnostics, like getting your labs done from your doctor's office or your x-ray, if you have a chest problem or something, we don't have that available. Advanced diagnostics, like if you need an MRI scan or a CAT scan or something, we don't have that available. Rehab services, which is physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, that kind of thing. There is outpatient facilities for that here, but there's long waiting lists for it. Pharmacies, we have 3 pharmacies. Public health and preventive care, that's mostly through the county and the pharmacies. We have several dentists and podiatrists. Transportation and ambulance service is complicated and a major issue. Subacute care, which is like people coming out of the hospital, but they're really not ready to go home, that kind of thing. We don't have any of that available. Long-term care, where mostly older people need help. We have 2 places in Montara. A skilled nursing home where people do need nursing care. We have none. Board and care where people can live affordably, long-term and get help. We have none of that. Home health care support, there is some available, but there's long waiting lists for it. So that just gives you an idea of what we have, what we don't have. And there are several groups locally working on this issue. And I'm just going to tell you really quickly what some of the issues that we've come up with are. So nothing is going to be simple, but what we really need is to know what people would actually use. The problems or the things that are going to have happen to make these things available are 1, coordination of providers and provider groups. Right now, if you want to go to some facility and you have Blue Cross and they only take Aetna, you're out of luck. So whatever we put together has to take everything. Right now, probably over half of the residents of the coast side have either Kaiser, Medicare, or Health Plan of San Mateo. But we need to make sure that there's coordination among all the provider groups like Sutter, Kaiser, Stanford, et cetera, so that everybody can be seen. That's not easy. Second, another thing is technology. Right now, if you go to a Sutter lab and get your labs done, the people at Kaiser are not going to know what those lab results were. So if we have a lab draw place here on the coast, it needs to be able to go to everybody's doctor. And then the last thing is acceptance by the community. Whatever services we end up having provided here should be in a setting that's predictable and inspires confidence so that they can be used often enough to make the providers want to invest in it. So given all that, I would like to just open things up for ideas. I have a whole list of ideas from the people that have contacted us before the meeting, but I would like to hear what other people have to say. We could start with going around.
Yes, let's do the council first.
Yeah. You start with Greg.
Well, Claire, thanks for leading this initiative. I agree with Gus, personal experiences, with my wife falling and stuff. And you have to drive over to, in our case, Mills, okay, to get anything serious done. I'm also sensitive to the economics of it. I can't remember the exact numbers, but there were like 3 visits a day for a facility that's got to cost $1 million or more a year to keep open. So I do agree that we need to provide something that's in demand frequently enough that the people offering it can at least make a buck or break even. So I'm not a medical professional. I do think things like lab work and x-rays, I could see it might be expensive to do CT scans and MRIs and, serious trauma. So I'll leave it to you, Claire, to balance the feedback you get into what seems to be a reasonable proposal for equipping the place. With the Cypress Point project having been approved by the county, we're now going to have a bunch of people with presumably more young children. So, I mean, I think this is something we need to bring to the attention of the county, and I'll stop there.
But just as an aside, I do plan to share this with the interagency group that's working on it, as well as with Ray's office and with the Health Friendly.
What about Half Moon Bay? Why don't you go to the next Half Moon Bay City Council meeting and bring it up there too?
Not a bad idea. Okay.
If I could chime in, we're acutely aware of the issue. The Half Moon Bay City Council passed a resolution urging that we have urgent care. And my personal opinion is the best thing we could do is get it at Seton for various reasons. We have an age-friendly task force which is working on this issue, as Claire well knows. She's on the group. We're also have applied for Measure K funds. Initially, that was going to be for a lab draw station. Probably that would be put in Ted Adcock Center. We're waiting to hear if we get that grant. If that happens, we could spend the money in various different ways. So it's not like Half Moon Bay is not aware of the issues about medical care on the coast side. We're acutely aware, and we're doing everything we damn well can. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I didn't mean to give it short shift. Harvey's been a major leader in this the whole time, and we're working together with the Senior Center, with AARP, and with Ray's office and the county in general to put this together. And that's where your opinions are going to go, is to those people.
I think all I would want to say at this point is to basically echo what Greg said about the economics of it. I mean, we have to figure out what is possible for somebody to actually do, like economically, like what's economically viable. A lot of the stuff, the things like MRI is probably not going to be that. But I think the basic blood draws and some of the urgent care stuff, I feel like there should be enough traffic. I'm hoping what the data says is that there's enough traffic to make that work. That's where I think we really actually do need to see what Ray comes up with on the data side. So I'm eager to see what that is when it comes.
If I could chime in again, in a very unscientific way at last night's council meeting, I asked everybody in the audience, would they use an urgent care facility if it were available? I didn't see anybody who didn't raise his or her hand, for whatever that's worth.
Awesome.
So I agree about the economic issue. I guess I'm a little concerned. Oh, yes, sorry. I think one of the things that occurs to me is trust and confidence in whatever we have here, because with Seton, I think in the past, there wasn't also a lot of trust and confidence in the care that you might receive there if you had to go. And sort of uncertainty about what care was actually offered there. So anything that we come up with has got to garner that trust from the community that they would receive good care, whatever the options may be. I guess for me, the top priority would probably be emergency, but urgent and emergency services. Because the time element is sort of what works against us here on the coast side. And then everything else, you know, whatever's possible would follow that. Well, that's all I have to know.
Okay, so I just want to whip through 3 points real quick regarding this. First off, as anecdotally, I have a family member today who drove over the hill to get blood work done because it's not available here. So that's current. Second thing, I wanted to expand a little bit on Claire's points about dentists and primary care physicians. They are here, but none of them are taking new patients. So when I first moved to the coast, I said, hey, I need a primary care physician. I went through all the places you could go. They said, we're not taking new patients now for dentists or primary care physicians. So we don't have primary care physicians here if you're new, or a dentist if you're new. Okay, so I also have a financial, an issue regarding finances, and that's my personal finances. So we talk about an urgent care center versus an emergency room. My insurance through financial measures wants me to go to an urgent care center first. They do not want to pay for me at the emergency. If I break my, they do not want me to go to emergency room. Well, they don't care, but they're not paying for it, right? They want me to go to urgent care. That's in the plan. So we need an urgent care center just because of personal finances and directions that insurance companies are driving. The second thing is we need an emergency room also for things like heart attacks, where it's something that an urgent care center is not going to have the capacity to deal with. And what an emergency room would. And one other question, no, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan?
Yeah, so, you know, in the years past, I've been to the emergency, room in Moss Beach at Seton, or I guess it was called St. Catherine's at the time. To me, it's a no-brainer that there should be an emergency and an urgent care center there. But you know, finances, I guess I asked this question when Seton came and presented. So there are 2 separate licenses by the county. To have a emergency room is 1 license, and to have a urgent care is a separate license. And you know, you just don't see, you don't really see them around. It's either an emergency room or it's an urgent care center. It's you don't see them combined. And I think that that's kind of set up that way from Sacramento. It's just, or whatever the health, you know, industry sets it up that way, that they can't share. But I think there's, I get a feeling there's a lot of pressure to get around that. It sounded like Seton said that they were looking into that. Or so yes, emergency here, urgent care here, the rest, you know, whether it's you know, financially viable for a provider, you know, I'm just sure that maybe there's ways that they can get around and do blood drawing, or whatever else is needed, you know. But clearly, in my view, you know, the bare minimum of an emergency center and emergency room and an urgent care center should be on the coast side.
Thank you.
Can I throw one more thing in? I suspect, I don't know for sure, maybe I'll be wrong about this, but I suspect the emergency services are more expensive than the urgent care.
Yeah.
And if that is true, like one thing that might be worth thinking about is, do you have emergency services capacity, but you don't staff it except at certain times? So like, for instance, on weekends, if something happens, you can't get over that hill in under an hour. You know what I mean? So like, there may be worth staffing something, you know, Saturdays and Sundays during certain times of the year, and not staffing at other times. If something happens in the middle of the night, you can get over the hill pretty fast. It's in the middle of the night. But I was saying, if it comes down to we can't, if it comes down to it's simply not economically viable to staff it all the time, it might be worth still staffing it some of the time. Might
I think an emergency room really needs to be open 24/7, but urgent care doesn't. And that's one of the things that we were thinking about is, would it make sense to have urgent care in evenings and weekends or something like that? Whatever it was, I think it should be predictable. You shouldn't be sitting there saying, gee, are they open or not? But I don't think it needs to be 24/7 for urgent care.
Can also throw in stroke mobile. Remember, we talked about.
Yeah.
stroke mobile.
Stroke mobile is a great idea. For those who maybe weren't here, there are in some locations, even locally, not locally here, but in the Bay Area, who will take patients who are picked up by their local fire department with a stroke or something, and take them as quickly as they can toward the nearest stroke-oriented hospital. But meanwhile, someone's going to come out with a mobile ICU unit, basically, and transfer the patient into that before they get to the hospital and start working on them. And I think that might be a good solution for some of our critical care needs, if we can make it work. I'd like to open it to people on Zoom too.
Can I just
Yeah.
one more, that, you know, is there a model anywhere where they have a urgent care, a mobile urgent care that, you know, could be partnered with another hospital that could come down to, you know, you hear about these things in third world countries where, you know, doctors come and, you know, they provide all the care, in villages, something of, you know, we're a big village, but I don't know, it's maybe something to look into. Maybe there is a model, maybe, you know, if you can't have a, you know, 8 to 5 urgent care, actually, I think a lot of them are open till later. I think, maybe till 8 PM, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. People get off work and, you know, trip also, right?
And we're just looking for ideas now, what
Yeah.
people would be, want.
Urgent cares do blood draws too.
Yeah, but then they charge a lot more than if you went to a blood drawing place. So it's the economy of everything. What about people online? Any thoughts from people on the Zoom call? Raise your hand or yell at us or something.
Looks like Catherine.
Crystalline?
Oh, Crystalline.
Yes, I'm so glad that you guys are taking this up and talking about it, and the other agencies as well. Because it's a real misnomer, the fact that there's that sign on Highway 1 that says hospital. Because people like myself who are not savvy in healthcare see a sign that's hospital and think there's a hospital. So up until I got savvy about what that not real hospital was all about, had anything happened to me, I would have immediately driven there and then been turned around or whatever the case may be. And it seems like it's a real community must have to have some kind of emergency services. And considering how close we are to the harbor and how many rescues they're doing, having to send people over the hill who have just had a drowning incident or anything like that, seems kind of ridiculous to add extra time onto their possibilities for being saved. So it seems crazy to me that there's not better systems on the coast side already. And then to Harvey's point, there was about, I don't know, maybe 40 people in the room at the time of the poll saying that they would all use emergency services. And so I think many people are moving to the coast side and may not have had a need of emergency services yet, but all probably still believe that you could just go up into Moss Beach and be taken care of. And they're going to get a rude surprise. So.
Thank you, Crystal. Anybody else? I know there's some people on here that are interested in the topic. I see.
Don't see any hands. I don't see any hands raised.
Yeah. Come on, speak
Well,
to it.
Joyce just unmuted herself. There she goes.
Okay.
Hi,
Joyce?
everybody. Claire, I want to compliment you on the list that you created about what's available on the coast side. I think that goes a long ways to helping us understand the realities of what we have here. I think terminology is critical for our conversations to be useful. Understanding the difference between urgent care and emergency departments, what's expected of each, what one might realistically expect. Truly, our emergency care on the coast side has been via CAL FIRE and the ambulance service, the care provided by the emergency medical staff in the ambulances. That won't change. They will always be here. And they're the ones that have responded to heart attacks and strokes and other critical issues. I think what hasn't been cared for well are things like, do I have pneumonia? I've been coughing for 3 days. I need somebody to listen to my chest and tell me whether I need antibiotics. My child took a tumble on his bicycle. I need to know if I should worry about a concussion. As somebody talked about his wife getting cut by broken glass. I think those are the kinds of things we could hope that an urgent care facility that's open 12 hours a day could provide us some comfort and good care. So thank you, Claire, for what you're doing.
Thank you, Joyce. I think you want to say something, Greg, didn't you, Chris? No, okay.
When we're done with the public comment, I did want to make some points or suggested action items.
Okay. Anybody else on Zoom that wants to chime in? Now's your chance.
There's an Emily Glines who's unmuted, but I don't see her hand raised.
Yep. Emily, did you want to talk?
I just unmuted myself,
Okay.
and I'm claiming to be here because I was an El Granado resident for a long time. So I also have Midcoast experience. And my brother was hospitalized for a number of years at Seton Coastsider as a skilled nursing facility, I guess it was, which was a wonderful facility. So this is a bit of a nostalgia in that it was, I found to be a wonderful facility, provided physical therapy, was close to family so that you didn't have to go a long distance to look after your relative and see how they're doing. And the two facilities here are extraordinarily expensive if you've checked into them. And this facility, of course, handled people who were on Medi-Cal as well as paying patients. And it's maybe not high on the list of priorities here, but I would surely like to see us have a skilled nursing facility here. And the building is there and was set up for that.
Thank you. Anyone else, or shall I let Greg talk? And if anybody wants to add anything, we want as much information as we can get, but let's turn it to Greg for right now.
So I noted Half Moon Bay had done that letter. I think Harvey mentioned it last meeting too. So I think we should do a letter, and I won't be specific, Claire. I'll leave that to you and the people who have more expertise. One thing that might be in that letter is removing the hospital sign, per Crystalline's point. Shouldn't we ask the two senior care facilities in the area and the existing healthcare providers, what few there are, what they think should be in that?
We've already done that. We have a group of healthcare providers that are working on this.
And you've talked to the two senior facilities in Montero as well?
Not them, no.
Shouldn't we ask
Sure,
that?
why not?
Okay. And then I agree what you're doing is the right direction. You're coming up with kind of a functional specification of desired services and, like you said, the insurance coverage. So I encourage you to keep going on that. As far as outreach goes, I'm wondering if we could do a civic bell poll, which Gus knows something about. And then I'm wondering if, Claire, you could work with Michelle, and I'd be glad to help to get an article in the Buzz. saying whatever you want, describing the work to date and asking the same kinds of questions that you want to hear from the public about as part of an outreach plan. That's my thoughts.
So what was the action item before?
I can't assign action items. I'm just making
No.
suggestions here.
Okay, but what was the one before article on the Coastside Buzz? What was your other thought?
Civic Bell poll. I'll send you an
Okay.
email. I'll put it in the chat.
Pack Bell? Okay.
Civic Bell,
Oh, Civic Bell.
not Pack Bell.
Wow.
Pretty sure the phone company doesn't care. Last thing we want to have to depend on healthcare is the phone company. I agree. I think we should do a letter, but I'm happy to be on the team for it. I'm happy to. I can like.
You want to narrow it down? Because I said letter of some sort. To whom would we write this letter?
Yeah, I think that's something we should figure out. Right?
Should I
don't know that we
leave that
necessarily
open?
know- Yeah, I think
Okay.
we leave that open. Okay.
Okay,
But we can do a working group and we can come back to the full council with a letter when we're ready for it. That makes sense.
There's a group right now that's meeting every other Monday that has people from some of the big groups like Dignity and Sutter and Stanford, as well as some other people that are all trying to focus mostly on urgent care and or a blood draw place. And it's possible they would want to have some input into designing and using this study. But maybe we could work with them and see if we could help in some way.
Why don't I follow up with that?
Okay.
so there are some very small spaces for rent on Main Street. Quest Diagnostic could set up their lab collection facility on one of those places if they could afford the rent, et cetera,
I'm just writing that down as an idea because we want nothing but ideas,
Okay,
but they did do that once and it didn't work.
okay,
That doesn't mean it couldn't work in the future, but we want something that all the different insurers and all the different provider groups can get payment for and get the results back from.
okay.
And we don't have enough volume to satisfy Quest.
Okay.
But something.
Okay.
Claire's leaving, so.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So I just have a question. I have a question about, we heard the presentation from Seton and they're doing all this work, but there's no assurance, at least it seemed that there was no assurance that they won't be gone by the end of the year. And are we thinking that, how are we taking that into account, that facility may change hands or there may be something, as far as I know, they still don't have permits for the work that they're doing. So I guess I'm wondering how that plays into all of this.
Well, right now, Seton is participating in this group that I was referring to. And they're participating on the assumption that they are going to reopen and that they are open to the idea of urgent care. I think we have to accept that at this point, but I don't know what's going to happen.
Claire?
Yeah.
Two things. I'll just add that I just recently had blood drawn and I didn't know where to go. Quest was one. I wound up going to Quest, but there was also LabCorp near Ceremony. Don't know what street it is, but close to Ceremony, and Quest was pretty close there too. It was on Gellert. But process was extremely easy. Just showed up. There were a lot of people. It was early in the morning. LabCorp was packed. Quest, 10 people in the waiting room. I came back later. I went right in. Anyway, it was a good experience. But in regards to having a letter or not, I think does it not make sense to kind of work with or at least coordinate with Supervisor Mueller, so that we're not you know, at least if we do eventually write a letter, you know, it's, you know, we got the right stuff, at the right time. I don't know, just thought to, coordinate and kind of check with him first before we commit to writing a letter.
Since he's involved in this too, I don't see why not. You've talked with him, we could check it out, I guess.
Yeah, I'm meeting with him next week. I can add it to my.
Okay.
Yeah, just do that one. About it. Okay, do we have any other thoughts on healthcare for now from the coast side?
Thank you for all of your ideas. They're very helpful and I will share them with the people that are working on it and we'll talk about where to go from here. We do have some ideas about what to do. I think the civic bell poll would be excellent, but I think we need to coordinate it with other people.
Yeah, then we'd have to think about what we want to ask and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, I'm sure they would. Sure they would do it for a minimal fee. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Nope. Then, all right, closing this agenda item and moving on to emergency evac. I'm gonna turn over to Greg to kind of lead us through that discussion. We've obviously had some meetings recently on the coast side about it, and let's take a look at what's been going on.
Okay, so I'll start out with an apology because I did not attend the May 1st CERT meeting in El Granada, but I had several residents, about half a dozen, write me with their issues and stuff. It's clear several of them at least did attend the meeting. But it's also clear there's concerns about disinformation being put out there in some of the comments. And so with Michelle Dragony's help, I wrote Dave Cosgrave. Unfortunately, he couldn't attend tonight. It was too last minute invitation. So I understand that. And he's done so much for us out here. But he did write an email and I will read what the major points from his email, as well as some additional points that the residents made, just so you can understand what's going on. And then we'll talk a little bit about the May 11th drill that's going to occur on Upper El Granada Boulevard. There is a detailed 2-page flyer on the MCC website for that El Granada drill, if you want any details. And then we'll just talk about the general outstanding risks we face here on the coast and invite community discussion. So Dave sent the following notes and I slightly cleaned it up, but the May 1st discussion was for the El Granada Prepared Group on all risks, earthquake, tsunami, fire. But the main discussion was about the May 11th drill. The exercise for the public was to learn about the high-low time to go program that is new to San Mateo County. And I did ask Dave if he has a presentation, if he could send us the file or maybe attend another meeting, he can cover that in detail.
Dave Cosgrove?
Yeah, Cosgrave. He said we all should subscribe to SMC Alert and we should load and use the Genesis Protect app, which is a new app for the company that took over Zonehaven. You may remember Zonehaven is this web-based cell phone service that's supposed to help queue people up and get them to evacuate in an orderly fashion by telling who to do what. The evacuation that's going to occur on the 11th is voluntary. In a real evacuation, first responders would designate a temporary evacuation point. The El Granada School, which is going to be used on the 11th, would not be a temporary evacuation point for a fire in El Granada, which is pretty clearly obvious. The 3 primary planned county temporary evacuation point locations are the community colleges at Skyline, CSM, and Kenyatta. And which ones would be used will be determined based on information available at the time of the need. In other words, what's the disaster? Which way is the wind blowing? Where's the fire? All of that stuff is a last minute decision. The temporary evacuation point is not a required reporting location, but it's a place for people that have nowhere else to go. And keep in mind, it will take a while to get any services set up at any location that you arrive at. You can't expect, them to be fully staffed, the minute you arrive. Right now, there are 2 drills planned in the county. One is ours at the top of El Granada, and another one is Palomar Park in Bayside. Dave further mentioned that on red flag days, pay attention and be set, as in ready, set, go. There's no alerting system that's going to beat self-situational awareness. And so if we have days without nighttime fog and cooling, which are usually red flag days, and you see smoke coming your way, you shouldn't sit there waiting for an evacuation order. You should just get out of there. And so I thought that was good advice. Leaving early is the best option, he says. Now, some other residents who attended added comments. That basically they said the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the May 11th evacuation drill and evacuation in general. The purpose of the drill is to increase awareness as well as to use this as a test to gather data for use in software modeling, which will aid in helping them provide more realistic future plans. And there's a specific zone, SMC E092 in El Granada, planned for evacuation. It's in the flyer. There's a little map. Residents also noted that they were encouraged in real evacuation situations to have a to-go bag already packed and be ready to leave in no more than 10 minutes. Because the longer it takes to leave, the longer it will take to get to safety because everybody else is going to be leaving too. So be ready. And I thought this was good advice. Put your pet in its crate before you do anything else, because the pet could get kind of scared seeing everybody scrambling around, or maybe the smell of the smoke or whatever. And you don't want to have the pet run away or hide, when you need them. So I thought that was good advice. And they also encouraged residents to become a FireWise community. We had sessions here about FireWise a year or two ago. You may remember it's a voluntary thing that a subset of a neighborhood can set up. And there are two major benefits. One is their insurance cost reductions. Maybe now it's possibly necessary to get insurance. I don't know where we're going with the state fire insurance market, but it's certainly at risk. A lot of providers have left. So the idea that you would get insurance or lower cost insurance is important. And also, you may remember the homes or the fuel. This is a photograph of Paradise after their fire. And what you'll notice in this fire is the trees are still there, but the homes are gone. So, there's kind of a graphic point. So a lot of what FireWise will talk to you about is how to harden your home, what kind of siding, what you should do about the eaves, what you should do about roof surface, what you should do about defensible space. A resident also said that Dave stated his biggest fear was the Hayward fault with the destruction of infrastructure. If you're on Hetch Hetchy water, of course, the pipes could get cut. Power transmission, highways could get knocked out, bridges, the sewer could be cut. And so although the direct damage would probably not be major where we are, the effects on food, water, and power could last for a long period of time, an indefinite. One resident asked, if this test is evacuating 355 autos, how can we evaluate the adequacy of plans when over 2,000 autos are trying to flee with smoke and burning embers? And I'm just reflecting the question. I'm not going to try and answer that. We got this slide from Harold Herman. It must have been 3 or 4 years ago. And he pointed out that Montera, along with Half Moon Bay and Pacifica, is on a short list of places that have very constrained evacuation routes. This is the situation we face. It's well documented. I also put in here a map of the wildfire risks. I do want to take a minute to explain this because there are different wildfire maps if you go looking. The colors red and pink don't mean more or less danger. The dark red is areas where the responsibility for wildfire is local. The pink is where the responsibility is state or federal. If you look at the more detailed map, what's very high fire severity and what's extreme and all that, it's a different picture. But I thought it's worth showing this map instead of one of the others, because you can see right there in El Granada, behind El Granada and Half Moon Bay and some of the other areas in Montera, there's a local responsibility for wildfire control. We do have some unfinished business in terms of the work in Quarry Park. Much has been done, not to the satisfaction of the residents on the top of El Granado Boulevard, shown here by the red line, because there's stands of trees on that slope that haven't been taken down. And then, of course, you remember Don Horsley funding the blue work down here on the median to remove some trees. And I don't remember, I know RCD is talking about this, but I don't know we have an actual plan in writing, timetable, resources assigned to do the rest of this work. And as you may remember, Keith Mangold has done a bunch of research showing that during the highest danger days, the wind comes from the northeast, okay, and the risk of a canopy fire, which you've heard. Geez, I can't remember the CAL FIRE guy who spoke several years ago about this, but he talked about how embers could carry 3 to 5 miles. So we have to worry about that. I also just wanted to show the current active earthquake faults. There are more not shown on this map. I did talk to a California state geologist who's actually evaluating the dormant faults that run near where Cypress Point is going to be and some others in our area, Seal Cove. But those aren't shown. It'll be the rest of a year at least before he decides whether or not those should be left dormant. But you can see we have a fault going right up, the coast here. And then in addition to the earthquakes, there's also the risk of liquefaction of the soil. So mudslides in our area, that's shown in the dark green on this slide. And then we have a landslide risk pattern. This is an older slide. The arrow was because that's where Cypress Point's going to be, which is part of their parcel's landslide. But we do have some risk of landslides. And then here's the tsunami map, which you can see covers a good portion of Lower Moss Beach, the Half Moon Bay Airport, a bunch of El Granada. If you look closely, it's hard to see on this diagram, but the presentation will be posted after the meeting to the website. You can see we do have some risk of a tsunami. The highest tsunami in history out here was 106 feet. So I felt pretty safe when I bought my house. I said, I'm 100 feet up. But then it's pushing everything else up the hill and people are fleeing. So, it's an issue. And then we also have a stormwater problem, which we've talked about. This is a map from a consulting study the county had done. And you can see we are in the dark blue area there with rainfall intensity that's greater than all but one other area in the county. Okay, so that's why we get some of the flooding. I just want to mention, I'm aware of these choke points for evacuation. North of the Lantos Tunnel, which